Hi, my name's Wren King. I'm an anthropology, women and gender studies, and geography triple major at West Virginia University. I work with Dr. Lindsay Kahle-Semprevivo on sexual assault victimization on college campuses. For this project, we utilized the Association of American Universities 2015 Campus Climate Survey. For the purposes of this project, we consider it to be pretty representative, but there are some limitations that we will discuss later. So when we talk about sexual assault, especially on college campuses, we have a paradigm in our mind about the white heterosexual female. If we consider all victims of sexual assault under this paradigm, we are ignoring a lot of characteristics that make it more difficult for us to give resources to those who are most in need. We know that in sexual assault research that there isn't enough attention being paid to different identity factors. So for our research, we wanted to ask the question, does race and ethnicity affect the likelihood of sexual assault victimization rates on college campuses? To answer this question, we utilized logistic regression and odds ratios. What we found was interesting because sex classification and sexual orientation all fall in line with previous literature, as women undergraduates and LGBTQIA folks being more likely to experience all types of sexual assault with the exception of coercion. However, we found that with the exception of forced sexual assault, Asian women had the highest likelihood of experiencing all other types of sexual assault. Additionally, we found that non-US citizens are much more likely to experience sexual assault by coercion, and students with documented disabilities are much more likely to experience all forms of sexual assault. This is a complete turnaround from what we've seen in the literature. There hasn't been any kind of focus on these lesser-known minority groups, which results in a large gap in resources and information that we give to survivors and victims. We find this data in spite of the fact that the campus climate data is really lacking in terms of aptly displaying race and ethnicity across the United States. Colleges in this consortium are usually high-achieving research institutions like Ivies and Ivy adjacents. This might be able to explain the difference in the data with Asian women. However, there's a massive gap for Black students and other people of color. Because of this gap in the data, we can't draw any definitive conclusions. However, we see that there absolutely is an effect on sexual assault victimization with race and ethnicity. When drawing that conclusion, we have to understand that this is impacting real-world people, and the amount of time that we focus only on white heterosexual females is a lot of time that isn't being paid to those who are much more likely to be sexually assaulted. While it is important to ensure that resources are available to everyone, oftentimes there isn't enough cultural training or attention being paid to those who are not able-bodied, white, heterosexual, etc., etc. There must be further research conducted in order to understand what is actually happening. We know that sexual assault occurs at rates that are far higher than what is reported. There are several instances and situations in which people may not report their sexual assault, and we need to make sure that we keep that in mind when we're considering this data. In the future, we need to expand surveys to really target individuals who are minorities so that we understand the extent to which sexual assault is occurring in these communities. We also need to be willing to de-identify our data. We know that geography and many other factors plays into if sexual assault happens more on campuses, but oftentimes when universities participate in these sexual assault surveys, they choose to de-identify their data, which puts us in a lot of positions where we cannot actually draw any conclusions based on the data. We actually found that the AAU de-identified the data for the clubs so thoroughly that we couldn't take that into consideration when we were analyzing the data. Going forward, we need to focus on intersectional identities in regards to sexual assault. Thank you all for listening to my presentation. Have a good one.